I recently discovered Artefex panels and I'm really impressed by the quality. They were kind enough to send me some samples when I reached out to them, which is what I'll be sharing in this video. We'll take a look at their oil-primed linen aluminum composite panels, aka ACM panels, their oil-primed aluminum Oleopanels, and their copper panels. I'll discuss the properties of each and zoom in so you can get a sense of the material as well as the texture. If you look at art history, ACM panels are a relatively new support, but they show promise as a stable support for paintings because they are unlikely to warp and they don't react to relative humidity or temperature fluctuations, unlike stretched canvas. Artefex's line of ACM panels are called Allen panels, and they're made with 2 sheets of aluminum laminated to a black polyethylene core. The linen is available in medium, fine, and extra fine texture, and you can get them either lead white oil primed or titanium white oil primed. They also come in acrylic primed, and while you can put oils on top of acrylics, oil grounds are going to be less absorbent than acrylic grounds, which is more compatible with oil paints and helps reduce sinking in. I'll zoom in now so you can get a better idea of the texture of the canvases. On the left, we've got the lead white oil primed Allen panels. This is the medium texture. This is the fine texture, and below we've got the extra fine texture. I'd put the extra fine texture on par with Masterpiece's Ventura linen oil prime panels. Up here we've got the titanium white oil primed Allen panels. So that's the medium texture, and this is the fine texture. And again below is the extra fine texture. Here's a side view of one of the Allen panels. The smaller panels are 3 millimeters thick, and the linen is adhered to the panels with BEVA 371 film, which is an archival and reversible heat-activated glue. So if for any reason the panel gets damaged, you can actually remove it and re-adhere it to another panel. One thing I really like about these panels is that they're ready to be painted on, and you don't have to do any extra prep. I just want to point something out, and you might have noticed that there's a slight yellow tint on some of the panels. This is alright, it's similar to what happens when an oil painting is stored in the dark. All you have to do to reverse this is put the canvas in indirect light for several days, and it should brighten. Oleopanels are ACM panels that have been primed with a lead white oil ground, so there's no canvas on here at all, it's just the aluminum and the lead white ground. Anton, the owner of Artefex, told me that these are actually their most popular panels. They come in 2 different finishes, eggshell or smooth, which both offer slight texture, and like the Allen panels, Oleopanels are ready to be painted on. Copper panels have been used for hundreds of years and have proven to be an excellent support for oil painting due to having a low response to relative humidity and temperature fluctuations. You might be noticing a trend here, and this is what gives us hope for the ACM panels. Having a low response to temperature and humidity changes means less paint cracking and less delamination down the road. Metal also doesn't attract bugs or mold. I found a cool remark from a curator named Letizia Treves at the National Gallery in London. She praises the longevity of copper as a painting support and says, quote, "For the most part, pictures on copper are wonderfully preserved. They have a very fresh quality, almost as if they were painted yesterday." I'll add a link to the full video in this video's description. It's pretty cool. You can see some paintings that are at least a couple hundred years old that have been painted on copper and do look like they were painted yesterday. Artefex's copper panels are composite panels, which consist of a copper sheet and an aluminum sheet that have been laminated to a plastic core. These panels can be primed or they can just be painted on directly. Lead Alkyd Ground, like this, is recommended for priming because it adheres well to non-absorbent surfaces like metal. This is the same ground that's used for the Oleopanels. Copper panels may also be sanded with 300 GSM sandpaper or higher, as in extra fine to extra fine, in order to reduce shine or add a little tooth. We'll do an experiment right now actually. I'll sand 1/3 of the panel, prime another third of it, and then leave the other third as it is and put some paint on top so you can see how it looks. One thing I'm noticing as I'm sanding is that it doesn't take much pressure to scratch the surface of the copper. I'm doing vertical strokes, but you can definitely mix it up and create a texture that flows or one that goes horizontal. Now I'm applying the lead Alkyd Ground to the center section of the panel. I'll end up doing 2 coats. As you can see, it's only semi-opaque. Most people will apply this lead Alkyd Ground with a foam roller, but for the purpose of this exercise, I'm just using a brush. We're going to test out my entire color palette, plus 1 bonus color, Gamblin's Copper, and this uses the pigment PM2, or Pigment Metal 2, which is bronze powder. I was curious to see how copper paint would look on top of a copper panel. We'll start with Foundation White, which uses a combination of lead white and titanium white, or PW1 and PW6. This is Ivory Black, which uses the pigment PBK9. Next up is Phthalo Blue, which uses the pigment PB15. This is Cobalt Teal, and it uses the pigment PG50. This is Green Gold, which uses the pigment PY129. This is Cadmium Lemon, which uses the pigment PY35. This is Yellow Ochre, which uses the pigment PY42. This is Transparent Oxide Yellow, which also uses the pigment PY42. This is Cadmium Orange, which uses the pigment PO20. This is Ercolano Red, and this uses the pigment PR102. This is Cadmium Red Deep, which uses the pigment PR108. This is Magenta, which uses the pigment PR122. And this is the Copper, which uses the pigment PM2. So it's a slightly different color, as you can see. And down here, I'm just going to try something different. I'm going to layer some of the green gold a little thick and then add some copper on top. And you can leave some of the copper exposed. You have to be sure to varnish the painting, however, because metal can tarnish over time. I'll zoom in on the panel so you can see how the different sections picked up the color. On the left side where the panel was sanded, you can see that a little more color was picked up than the right side where the panel was left smooth. In the middle, where the panel was primed, the colors are the brightest, but you're missing out on the cool metallic aspect of the copper. It's kind of interesting when you look at the colors. The transparent colors like green gold and transparent oxide yellow almost tint the copper, whereas the opaque colors almost become more alive. I like the bottom where the thick green gold and copper are applied. I feel like this might lend itself to some really unique painting possibilities. All of these panels come in standard sizes from 5 by 7 inches up to 20 by 24 inches, but you can place a custom order in any size and shape, all the way up to 4 by 8 feet for the Allen panels and copper panels, and 5 by 10 feet for the Oleopanels. I was so happy when I learned this because most manufacturers don't make panels even close to this size, let alone this sturdy. One thing to note is that if you plan on ordering a panel that measures 24 by 24 inches or larger, Anton suggests going with the 6mm honeycomb panel to ensure rigidity. 3mm panels are fine for smaller sizes. For example, I ordered this custom 34 by 34 inch extra fine linen lead oil primed Allen panel with a 6mm honeycomb depth. If you look down the side of this panel, you can see the aluminum honeycomb structure. This makes the panel super sturdy and also relatively lightweight. If you're interested in these panels, I encourage you to reach out to Artefex directly. They're super friendly and they're happy to answer your questions. I've added a link to their website as well as their email to the description of this video. I'm not an affiliate, by the way, I just think their products are awesome. If you've enjoyed learning about these panels, give this video a like and leave a comment below. Thanks for joining me.